Here on The Colour of Country Life, good to be chatting the day after the state budget with the Shadow Minister for Agriculture and Regional New South Wales, Mick Veitch. How are you, Mick?
I'm all right. How are you today?
Very good, thanks. Your first reaction to the state budget from the state coalition government?
Oh, well, mate, it was certainly a big spending, throw cash around budget, which clearly means they think they're in electoral trouble. It looks like a budget trying to buy votes. That's the first brush. That's what it looks like. And when you get into the detail, you realise that they're funding that big splash of cash with debt. We're looking at locking in $118 billion worth of debt to try and pay for this over the next 4 years.
And I noticed the commentary from the New South Wales farmers yesterday about the budget saying they were pleased Premier Perrottet hadn't hit primary producers with new taxes. But how are they going to pay for all of that spending and debt in the longer term?
Well, these are very good questions because if you look at the budget, it says that we're going to be back in the black or in financial year 24-25, but that doesn't mean we've extinguished the debt. And if you look at the debt they're putting on us, it's about the equivalent of $21,500 in debt for each individual in New South Wales. It's a lot of debt. They've borrowed to the hilt. They've thrown money around trying to buy votes, which is pretty clearly what this is about. And so I think people, whilst they look at this and they go, yeah, there's a bit in this for me, they also need to realise that at some point we're going to have to pay this back.
Yeah, I saw a graph you shared on social media, which sort of looks like climbing up to your place at Tumut in the Blue Mountains from where Labor was in terms of debt to where we are under the coalition.
Yeah. This is a mountain of debt. This is quite substantial debt, $118 billion over the next 4 years. And don't forget, this is at a time when interest rates are also on the rise. So you really do have to wonder whether it's a fiscally responsible budget. They've always claimed to be, good financial managers, that they're fiscally responsible, but you do wonder whether that is brought into doubt because of this budget.
Yeah, just on that point, what you're basically saying is the cost of that debt is going to be so much higher as interest rates go up. Governments were encouraged to borrow during the pandemic, but now the servicing of that debt is going to get a lot harder for the state government.
Yeah, that's right. And you've got to wonder how we are going to service that debt. I mean, this is a government who is very keen to privatise. They've sold a lot of New South Wales assets over the last 12 years. Really, are they going to continue down that path? They actually haven't provided a debt management strategy. They haven't told us in the budget exactly how they're going to pay this money back. And so what pressures does that put on the state's economy in years to come? Seriously, a lot of debt here, and it should be a concern to everyone.
Now, looking inside the portfolio area of agriculture and primary industries, the government's crowing this morning about $1 billion or more in spending, but a lot of that is quite important flood recovery efforts. But outside of that, we've got a biosecurity spend of about $160 million, also important. But is there enough there for, I guess, our primary industries across regional New South Wales?
Yeah, like if you take the flood money out, it does come back to sort of much more realistic and sort of run-of-the-mill usual type primary industries funding, agriculture funding. What I'd say about biosecurity is that I've publicly said this in the past, that I would support any money being put on the table by the government to implement biosecurity measures. We cannot afford an incursion into New South Wales, whether it be lumpy skin disease or foot and mouth disease. We just can't afford that. And so I support any money going towards biosecurity. I did say before, though, publicly that I would support the money, but then I would also say it's probably not going to be enough. And I still am of the view that it's probably not going to be enough. And to put that into context, I think the New South Wales Farmers President, James Jackson, said yesterday that the surplus the government's spruiking will be in the 24-25 financial year. If we have a biosecurity incursion, that'll be wiped out.
Yes.
And so just to put it all in context, the money, the spend in biosecurity is very good, but we need to be just a little bit of circumspection here. But biosecurity is everyone's obligation, and I'm just concerned about the fact that it's focused on private landholders predominantly, and the public landholder, the state government, has an obligation here too. Let's hope some of this money goes to eradicating weeds and pests on public land.
Yeah, that's a significant one. We look in Western New South Wales, for instance. We've got the pigs, the feral pigs that are in growing numbers. There are new technologies being used to bring them under control, but we also had Japanese encephalitis in the piggery sector that was a grave concern, and apparently that's got amongst those feral pigs. It's a good illustration, isn't it, that if you don't get feral animals under control, then these things can spread.
Yeah, absolutely. Biosecurity is everyone's obligation. It's not just the farmers, just not private landholders. So I have been critical in the past of public landholders, whether it be Forest Corp, whether it be Crown Lands, whether it be the roadsides. Public landholders have an obligation here as well, and we need to make sure that if we're putting money on the table for biosecurity, that it's to make sure all landholders, including the public landholders, are doing their bit.
And on regional New South Wales, was the budget generous enough towards regional areas, or has it gone sort of targeting marginal electorates in an election year budget?
Yeah, well, I am a little worried that in regional New South Wales, the Department for Regional New South Wales, I'm just a little bit concerned that some money sort of been tucked away here in a big spending budget to be announced a bit later on down the track, closer to the election. Now, I know I'm cynical, but I just look at that budget and think, for regional New South Wales, has some of this been tucked away for vote buying coming closer to the election? Vote buying is sometimes called pork barrelling, and this is a government that's actually got that down now to a fine art.
Yes, I think we've seen that. There's discussions about, now former Nationals leader John Barilaro. The National Party itself has some electorates where they've got some nervousness, whether it's a threat from the opposition or from other parties they might want to hang on to. You're suggesting there might be some big spends to help them get over the line in even regional electorates.
Yeah, I think that the Department of Regional New South Wales budget yesterday, there's clearly some money being set aside for announcing later on. So let's see what that is. But I am concerned that this budget was about the election in March 23, and pork barrelling has become an art form under this government. So let's just see how they go about announcing that money.
All right. Well, Mick Veitch, the Shadow Agriculture Minister, we're running out of time. Thanks for joining us again on Flow. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and have a cracking day, everyone.